Good morning, dear students of class 12th. I, Kazim Ali, welcome you to this online class. Today we are going to take up the question and answers of the chapter titled Leh, written by Andrew Harvey. The first question we have in the discussion part of the chapter is, what is the most fascinating thing in Leh? This question wants to know from us that according to the writer, what is the most fascinating thing to do in Leh? The answer is the most fascinating thing to do in Leh is to visit and look at the royal palace. The palace which is built in Leh, the palace which is the palace of Leh, which is so famous in Ladakh, is the most fascinating thing. Visiting is the most fascinating thing to do in Leh. To look at it from every angle and in every light is the solidest joy of Leh. So when one visits Leh and looks at the royal palace from every angle and every side, it is the most fascinating thing to do in Leh. When one looks at it from below or from the side or from behind, every time the view is completely fascinating and totally different. Similarly, on looking at the palace in different lights, for instance, in the morning sun, during the dusk, in the moonlight, every time the palace presents a different tinge of color. On looking at the palace from the main street after the moon has risen, it seems that the palace is wearing the moon like a vast earring. This is therefore one of the charms of Leh, which attracts thousands of visitors every year. So the most fascinating thing to do in Leh is visiting its royal palace, and this has been and continues to be one of Leh's most attracting, attracting things for the tourists and visitors. And to look at it in different lights and from different angles gives a different perspective, gives a different, presents a different facade of the Leh Royal Palace every time. So it is a very entertaining, it is a very, productive thing to do in Leh. So the second question is, in what sense is the Palace of Leh now? In what state is the Palace of Leh now? This question asks us that if visiting the royal palace of Leh is such a popular, is such a productive activity to do in Leh, then what is the present state of the royal palace of Leh? And the answer is, the palace of Leh is in a very poor state now. It is empty and crumbling, and when one walks through its vacant rooms, fat tame mice came out of the dark corners to be fed. So according to the author, though Leh Palace is visited by so many tourists and visitors every year, its condition is not something very, good or something very appreciable. The Leh Palace is in a very pathetic state. It needs, some kind of some kind of makeover, some kind of remedial measures to take so that it it is made further attractive for the tourists. The third question is, from a distance it looks like a tent. What does it refers to? And the second question is, why does it looks like a tent? So this line is from the lesson Leh. It, in inverted commas, it in the line refers to the suspension bridge that spans the Indus River on the way to Stock. It looks like a tent from a distance, as it is so covered with prayer flags of every color that comparing it to a circus tent becomes unescapable. So in this question, the word it, marked by commas, marked by single inverted commas, is referring to the suspension bridge, is referring to the bridge which the author describes in the text while on his journey towards Stock, where he goes to visit the Rani of the Leh royal family, who now, instead of living in the royal palace of Leh, lives in a smaller palace in Stock. So this bridge is present on the way, and it looks like a tent from a distance, as it is so covered with prayer flags. So this paragraph is the answer to the second part of the question, which asks us, why does it looks like a tent? If it is a bridge, then why it looks like a tent? So this bridge, it looks like a tent from a distance, as it is so covered with prayer flags of every color that comparing it to a circus tent becomes unescapable. It looks like a circus tent, this bridge, because if looked from a distance, it looks like a circus tent because it is so covered with prayer flags. The Buddhists of Ladakh, or Buddhists in any other place, they have this tradition, they have this culture of tying this prayer flags to bridges to and other physical entities, and they have done so in the at this bridge. So from a distance, it looks like a tent. The fourth question is, where does the Queen and her family live now? So we are asked about the Queen and her family. If they are not living in the royal palace of Leh, so where are they currently living now? The Queen and her family now live in the smaller palace at Stock, 10 miles away from the main palace in Leh. The Queen and her family now live in a smaller palace which is in Stock, which is 10 miles away from the Leh palace. So they have left the main royal palace of Leh, and instead they are living in a smaller palace in Stock. The fifth question is, why has the bridge been covered with prayer flags? How does the writer react to this sight? The bridge has been covered with prayer flags because if there were no prayer flags, the river would get angry. So this bridge has been covered with prayer flags with the sole intention that to please the river, for the pleasement of the river, because this bridge also the bridge is nearly at the middle of the valley. The strong winds could carry the prayers down the valley and all over the country. So there is two purpose. There is a twin thought. There is a dual benefit of covering the whole bridge with prayer flags. The first is that the bridge has been covered with prayer flags because if there were no prayer flags, the river would get angry. As we know that in Ladakh and many other hilly areas, and sometimes floods and other natural calamities struck it. So if they want to keep the river happy, if they want to appease the river, they have to cover the bridge with prayer flags. So the first reason is that they want to keep the river happy. And second one is that also as the bridge is nearly at the middle of the valley, the strong winds would carry the prayers down the valley and all over the country. The second reason behind this tradition is that the bridge is constructed at a very critical point, that it is at the middle of the valley. So the winds will when the winds will blow, the prayers written on those scarves, on those flags, would be taken all over the valley, all over the valleys, different valleys of Ladakh, and from it all over the country. So in this way, doing so, like covering the bridge with flags, would help in would help in spreading the prayers all over the country. So the second part of the question is, how does the writer react to this sight? when the writer on his way to stock see this or saw this, how he reacts to it. The writer reacts to this festive and exuberant gesture by covering the steel lines of the bridge with scarves and mantras and holy dragons. By his joyful mood and wish to sing and dance. So when the writer sees such a gesture, such a tradition, such a bridge which is so covered with prayer flags that it looks like a circus tents, he becomes very happy, he becomes very excited, he becomes very elated, and he has this tendency, he feels like that he wants to sing and dance and enjoy the sight to the utmost level of his mood. So he has a very jovial and happy mood on seeing such a bridge. So this was all for the question and answer series this was all for the question and answers in the discussion part of the text of the lesson titled Leh. We will continue the remaining question and answers in the second part. Thank you so much.